Do you want to learn a few lessons from other brand new tax sale investors like yourself? Do you want to avoid their mistakes and their holdups? Let's talk all about it so you can leverage their experience into your tax sale business. Before we get started, my name is Casey Denman. I've been investing in tax liens and tax deeds for well over 2 decades now, and I've been training others for more than a dozen years through my videos, my books, and my training platform at TaxSaleAcademy.com. So I've had the absolute pleasure of teaching many brand new tax sale investors these last 13 plus years. The coolest thing about teaching is learning through others. Now, I've been around as a tax sale investor since the early 2000s, a very, very long time. So I've seen a lot of things. But when you add in my training of brand new tax sale investors, it becomes rather easy to spot trends. Much of what we do in the Tax Sale Academy is we work to break these trends. So in this episode, I'm going to discuss 5 things that I commonly see brand new tax sale investors do, and we'll discuss how to break through these mistakes. Let's get to them. The first one is oftentimes pretty backwards. Far too often, people make the mistake of doing, and then they screw up, and then they realize, hey, I need to go back and learn instead of just going out there and buying properties. They'll make a pretty massive mistake. And they're like, maybe I should learn what I'm doing so I don't screw up again. And this is something that I've addressed before, but with real estate, there are real consequences. There's real responsibilities. When you screw up something, it often costs you quite a bit of money. It's far, far easier to learn ahead of time than it is to try to reverse a mistake, because oftentimes those mistakes are not reversible when it comes to real estate. Many people think that learning takes time. And yes, that is true. It takes time. But learning is part of the pathway to success. It is a prerequisite to being successful as a tax sale investor. Just going out there full send and buying properties is a recipe for disaster, and it's going to catch up to you sooner or later. So my suggestion is to learn the basics, then continue to learn until you've got this entire business down, and then slowly enter the tax sale business. Go to auctions, find local mentors, talk to other investors, see the process, and then start growing your business from there. Don't try to learn by doing, because that's going to take you a lot longer and cost a lot more money, and it'll probably force you out of the business rather quickly. I see it time and time again. Instead, learn and then do. Number one mistake that I see. The next issue that I see is that new investors often have what I've referred to as blurred vision. They focus on the wrong properties, and they try to talk themselves into thinking that the properties they are researching are much, much better than they actually are. Just a couple of weeks ago, I had a new investor who was actually not an Academy member randomly send me an email with some property details asking what I thought about that property. Now, as a matter of principle, I teach people how to research properties extensively. It's a large, large part of what we do inside the Academy. But this person, a non-member, sent over this property details. I read through the email and how it was the last remaining piece of real estate in this subdivision. It was oversized. It had double road frontage, and everything seemed amazing about it, and they were going to buy it. But within a few seconds of me looking at it, it became obvious that it was a water retention pond for that neighborhood. That's why it was the only remaining piece of property left. I mean, one look at the aerial told me that within a matter of seconds, but it could have also been discovered in a number of other places inside the tax assessor's report on that property. And I see the same thing happening for somebody when they establish their bid amounts, right? The property is suddenly worth a lot more money than it truly is because they want to buy something so bad. Do not get into the habit of trying to force your investments. Instead, learn. Then apply that knowledge with your research. Take a very objective, fact-based approach. It's a yes or a no, and it's going to be worth this price, which means I must pay that price. Super simple process. It's just a matter of having the mental discipline to be able to stick to it. Do not allow your vision to get blurred because you want to start investing in something so bad. And that kind of goes along with the next one, which is underestimating what is required. And obviously, this is in reference to all things tax sale investing, such as learning, research, but specifically what I'm talking about right now is I want to mention that when it comes to underestimating, I'm talking about the number of properties that somebody must see get sold before they get that home run deal. Do not come into this business thinking you're going to go to your first auction or your second auction and hit it out of the park. It might take 4, 10, 20 auctions. But when you finally do get that home run deal, it'll certainly compensate you for all your time up to that point and much, much more. But just like a doctor might spend 10 years in college before they get their first big paycheck, expect to invest the time required. Certainly not 10 years, and your check can be much larger than a doctor's. But the point is that every single sustainable business in the world takes time to build. Luckily, you can get started in this business extremely fast compared to most other businesses, but it still takes time and it still requires patience. The more properties you see sold, the higher your chances are of snagging an incredible deal and the more money you make. It's as simple as that. The investor that sees 10 properties sold every year has a much, much lower chance of seeing success than the investor who sees 100 properties sold every year, who has a much lower chances of success than the investor who sees 1,000 or 10,000 properties sold every single year. The more properties you see sold, the higher your chances are of success. Don't go in there day one auction, and think you're going to make $1 million. It does not work that way. The next mistake that I see happen frequently is when an investor gets so fixated on minute details that likely don't matter much in the first place or could be easily solved. And let me give you an example of this. Most counties have something called a land use code that is attached to the property. That's how they classify that property at that tax office. Perhaps it's classified as improved residential and the code is 0001, right? Or vacant residential or commercial or whatever it is. It's simply a number that corresponds to a classification and can be an easy way to understand what is on a property when you first take a glance at the tax assessor's report. We teach about all this inside the Taxel Academy, of course. Now, mind you, you can also take the time and scroll for 2 seconds and read the rest of the assessor's report to see exactly what is on that property, but that's beside the point. So I had a new investor that got so fixated on these land use codes. One county that he was researching had 2 separate codes for residential vacant properties, which really threw him into a massive tailspin. He told me that he spent hours and hours looking for the difference between the codes, and he was very, very concerned since he could not figure it out. First off, in that case, if you're spending hours and hours and hours looking for something that doesn't matter a whole lot, just ignore the codes. It's not that big of a deal, and perform the rest of your research, which will tell you what's on the property no matter what. Nonetheless, I responded to his email. I said, call the county and ask. 5 minutes later, he replied, and he told me that one of those codes were for vacant residential properties inside the city limits, and the other one was for vacant residential properties outside of the city limits, which, by the way, is also notated in the property assessor's report down below those same codes. Now, understand, it's a very simple explanation, and he stressed over it for hours and hours trying to figure everything out, and he could have easily learned this with one quick phone call. But those codes are a very, very small detail in the scheme of investing, and truthfully, they don't matter a whole lot. It's just something that I teach to help you go through the properties quickly. If it works, fantastic. If it doesn't, use the other methods, right? So take the time to learn everything you can. Make the phone calls, ask the questions, but do not stress over every single tiny detail that might just be irrelevant in the first place. And the last one is I often find brand new tax sale investors lack the consistency required. Just like any business, when you invest in tax defaulted real estate, it takes time. It takes effort, but it also takes consistency. Doing it 1 month and then skipping 10, 11, 12 months, coming back a year later, that's going to mean you lost all momentum in this business. Momentum is what drives us forward as tax sale investors. This momentum translates into real-time experience, a better understanding of the strategies that are working right now, of the market and its happenings right now. And ultimately, it allows us to make more money, which is the goal, of course. So when you lose that momentum, it takes some time to regain it. So regardless if you have, say, 5 hours or 50 hours a week to invest in your business, commit to doing something as often as possible. Push yourself to go through this learning process, to review the laws, to research properties, to perform drive-bys, to attend auctions, to do something towards your business every single day if possible. When you sit on the sidelines, nothing good is going to happen because of it. So there you have it. 5 ways to overcome some of the issues that brand new tax sale investors face. That's all I've got for you today. I truly hope this episode has helped you out. If you enjoyed this episode or any of the episodes here on the Tax Sale Podcast, please do me a huge favor and leave some positive feedback on whatever podcasting or video platform you're listening or watching us on right now. We don't charge for these things, but your 5-star review, your thumbs up, or your positive feedback comment really means a lot to us and might even serve to pay it forward to somebody that learns about this incredible business simply because you took the time to provide us with some positive feedback. And as always, if we can be of any additional help, make sure you check out all the links in today's show notes, including the one to our comprehensive step-by-step training academy at TaxSaleAcademy.com. Hey, take care, folks, and make it a successful day. We'll see you next time right here on the Tax Sale Podcast. Bye-bye.